You know, batteries are pretty much the invisible engines running our entire modern world. But the tech that powers everything we love, it's facing a huge challenge. The main ingredient is just getting way too expensive and way too hard to find. So today, we're going to dig into what might be coming next.
I mean, seriously, just take a second to think about it. The phone that's probably in your pocket or your hand right now, the laptop you work on, even the electric cars that are starting to fill up our roads, every single one of them depends on a little box of rechargeable power. We are, for sure, completely hooked on them.
And right there, that's the heart of the issue. Lithium-ion batteries are the undisputed champs, right? But the lithium itself, well, the price is going up and there's only so much of it in the world. And that bottleneck is really forcing scientists to hunt for a serious replacement.
So on paper, the perfect challenger seems to be sodium. I mean, it is unbelievably abundant. Just think about the salt in the ocean. It's cheap, and chemically, it's a very close cousin to lithium. That means we wouldn't have to totally reinvent the battery from scratch. So you gotta ask, right? With all that going for it, why aren't all our batteries sodium-powered already? Well, the answer comes down to a few really tough hurdles.
And that brings us to the big puzzle, the central conundrum for battery researchers today. How do you unlock the incredible potential of sodium while also getting around its major weaknesses?
And listen, this isn't just some far-off theoretical problem. As researchers Priti, Singh, and Mudit Dixit put it, we urgently need an alternative. Their work really underscores this massive scientific push to find a successor to the lithium-ion batteries that we all depend on.
Okay, so we know it has all this promise, but what's really been holding sodium back? Well, it turns out there are some pretty big fundamental problems that have kept it in the runner-up position for years.
It all really boils down to four critical ways these sodium-ion batteries, or SIBs, tend to fail. This diagram from the research lays them out perfectly, so let's walk through them one by one.
First up is what's called structural degradation. Okay, so what does that mean? It means the physical structure of one end of the battery, the cathode, it literally just crumbles and falls apart over time. As those little sodium ions squeeze in and out while you're charging and discharging, the whole framework just gets weaker and weaker until it breaks. And what happens when the structure breaks down? Well, that leads you straight to problem number 2, really fast capacity loss. The battery just can't hold a charge for very long, and it gets worse and worse with every cycle. And that's a total deal breaker, right? You can't have that in a car or a phone.
Now, the third challenge is a little more, well, it's more about chemistry. It's called irreversible oxygen loss. See, the materials in the cathode have oxygen in them, and at high voltages, they can actually start to leak oxygen atoms. And once that oxygen is gone, it's gone for good. It causes permanent damage and just kills the battery's capacity even more. And the final piece of the puzzle is thermal instability. The current designs just aren't very stable if it gets too hot or too cold, which really limits where and how you can safely use them. So you put all 4 of those together, and yeah, you've got some massive hurdles to overcome. But what if there was a key to solving them all? This is where the story gets really interesting. Scientists think they found a way, a kind of secret key, to tackle all these problems at once. And it involves tapping into a hidden source of power that's already inside the battery. That key is a concept called an anionic redox. Now, in a normal battery, it's just the metal ions doing all the heavy lifting of storing and releasing energy. But with anionic redox, scientists found a way to get the oxygen ions to join the party and do some work too. It's like finding out you can double your workforce for free. It doesn't just boost the battery's capacity. If you control it right, it can actually help make the whole thing more stable. And you know, this didn't just happen overnight. It was a journey that took decades. The idea was first floated way back in 1996, and since then, scientists have been slowly chipping away at it, designing new materials, understanding how it works, and then, just very recently, finally making it happen in sodium-based batteries. So, armed with this amazing new understanding, this new tool in their toolkit, how are researchers actually taking this idea and using it to engineer a better sodium-ion battery? Well, they're focusing on 3 main strategies. First, they want to create what's called a pillar effect, to basically prop up the battery's internal structure. Second, they're designing these super organized atomic structures to make them stronger from the ground up. And third, they're being super careful about which materials they use to keep any destructive side reactions to a minimum.
Okay, so that first strategy, it directly attacks that structural breakdown problem we talked about. See, on an atomic level, atoms can wander into the wrong spots and block the flow of energy. The fix is this pillar effect. Scientists add in tiny amounts of other elements, they call them dopants, that act like little support pillars, locking all the layers in place and keeping the whole thing rigid and stable. The second strategy is all about architecture. Think of it like this. A random jumble of atoms is just inherently weak, kind of like a pile of bricks. But if you carefully arrange those atoms into what they call ordered superstructures, these really organized repeating patterns you see here, you can build a battery that is just fundamentally stronger, way more efficient, and much better at handling stress. Now, finding the perfect combination of elements to build these amazing structures is, well, it's not easy. The sheer scale of the search is just mind-boggling. We're talking about sifting through more than 60,000 potential materials. And obviously, you could never test that many in a lab. It would take forever. So this is where modern science is just so cool. They use supercomputers to run massive simulations. This chart here shows how it works. They start with this gigantic database of materials, use computers to filter out the unstable ones, and then run really complex calculations to predict which ones might actually work. It just speeds up the process of discovery like you wouldn't believe. So, after all of that, where does it leave us? Has science finally cracked the code? Are we looking at a sodium-powered future? All right, let's just wrap this all up. We started with the big problem. Lithium has its limits. Sodium looked like the perfect replacement, but it was held back by huge technical problems, like falling apart. But then, these huge breakthroughs, like figuring out anionic redox, opened up a whole new way forward. And now, thanks to some clever engineering and insane computing power, scientists are closing that performance gap way faster than ever before. Now look, the challenges are still very real. There's a lot of work to be done. But for the first time, the path forward is actually clear. And that leaves us with a pretty wild question, doesn't it? Are we getting close to a future where the exact same element that we use to season our food and that fills our oceans could one day power our entire world?